Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Good morning. Let's go and get this meeting started. I think we have two members that are on WebEx with us. Make sure they're going to join us. With that, Tom, Dave, would you like to call the roll? Tom, you want to call the roll? Let's see if they're on.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Speaker Reichman,
Here.
President Masterson, Speaker Pro Tem Finch, Vice President Wilborn, he is online on the Majority Leader Hawkins, Majority Leader Alley,
Here.
Minority Leader Sawyer, Minority Leader Sykes.
Thank you. Our first order of business is consideration of approval of minutes. You guys, I think it's all emailed out to you. Any questions on the approval of minutes? If not, I entertain a motion. I have a motion to approve by Senator Masson, second by Leader Hawkins. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The minutes are approved.
Summary of all of the requests for each of the committees. It has the approved days from last year, the requested days this year, the committee, and then the preliminary recommendations. The blue sheet is a summary by subject of all of the topics and includes who requested the interim committee and the number of days that they are requesting. And then the white sheets are copies of all of the interim committee requests that we received. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a page number on the white sheets. Those are reflected on the summary page. The green sheets will reflect what page number, and that's those letters, and the same thing on the blue sheets. We had a total of 26 committees that were requested for a total of 93 days. 11 joint committees, totaling 47 days requested, 11 special committees with 35 days requested, and then 5 other with a total of 10 days requested. 2 committees requested travel days. The Joint Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice Oversight requested 1 day for travel, and State Building Construction requested 2 days for travel. There were 2 committees that were included in appropriations bills. The regional mental health beds in Sedgwick County was in Senate or House Bill 2510, and the funding for community and technical colleges was in Senate Bill 267. Do want to note that the Special Committee on Claims Against the State requested 4 days. One of those, due to scheduling problems, is going to occur later this month. So that will be one of the days. It'll be in this fiscal year versus next fiscal year. So they'll have one in June and the rest of them in later months. And then the other item that was somewhat different is the Special Committee on Home and Community-Based Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities waiver. They did request authorization to use work groups similar to the Mental Health Reform Committee and have that facilitated by independent, they're thinking right now, the Kansas Health Institute, but that's not been finalized. And on the green sheet is the preliminary recommendation days that were a starting point for this document. I do want to note that when you look under the special standing committees, the Special Committee on Inpatient Psych Hospital Beds, you'll see that there's not a recommendation for that one or the Sedgwick County Regional Mental Health. Those are recommended to be combined in another committee with 2 days. So that's under special committees, the second and third committees to be combined into another committee. And then the same thing happens under the special committee on state board membership compensation and state employee pay. Those two are recommended to be combined into the special committee on state employee and board member compensation. So that's a summary of all of the documents, some of the changes. I do want to note that there are other committees on the second page of the green sheet that are included as well.
I'd like to remind the committee, this is not the only chance to discuss these items. If there's another committee that needs to be formed later or days need to be extended, that's always a possibility. This is this initial, let our chairs and the staff start to prepare. And although the recommendations come as a reduction in a lot of the requests, there's nothing that stops them from requesting more days, and there's nothing mandating they use all the days. It's just kind of a guideline for them. So which discussion questions do we have? There's a lot here. Hopefully it's a motion that encompasses what JG talked about, including the travel, including the consolidation of the committees, and then also the number of days, who appoints the special committees, and the number of folks on the special committee. Any questions, thoughts? Representative Sykes, or excuse me, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I have no questions or concerns about these, and thank you, JG, for such a great memo. I did have a question, and I just want this body to maybe think about. In the Senate this year, we had several bills dealing with sexual assault, mandatory reporters, statute of limitations, and there was some talk on our side about possibly having a joint committee to look at these things and address off-season. So I would just throw that out, that maybe we could look at something like that. And then my other one, in light of the bipartisanship in DC, looking at common sense gun legislation, I would also recommend that maybe we look at that moving forward. But thank you.
Any other discussion? Representative Sawyer.
Yeah, I was looking at, I mean, I'm pretty fine with the recommendations. The one question I have is the one on the special committee on medical marijuana. They requested 6 days and it was cut to 3. Yeah, I've been pretty frustrated that we haven't been able to get a bill passed. And I understand we got it to the Senate late last year. They had a lot going on, but I think I want to make sure that they have plenty of time to make sure they get a bill developed that can pass this year so we can get it passed. So, I mean, if they request, they think they need 6 days, I think we ought to give them 6 so we can try to get that bill passed.
Like I mentioned earlier, this is to kind of get them started. There'll be other meetings that can extend it if it's needed. I was comfortable with the 3 days. There might be other discussion on the panel. Representative Finch.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I know it's customary, we typically cut these requested days in half or reduce them, and I know we often come back in September, October if they need more meeting days and we can add them. So with that, I would just make a motion that we approve the recommendation for meeting days, for the consolidation, for the travel days, and all other matters which JG discussed in his recommendations. So we can get this moving.
Before we have the second, another thing, part of the motion needs to include who appoints the special committee chairs. Last year, we made it for the Senate president and the speaker to make those appointments, if it was House or Senate who chaired, and then the member was. And also the number of days. The special committees, historically, at least last year, we did 11 members, excuse me, not number of days, but number of members. We did 11 members for each. And I do believe the technical college consideration by statute is a 13-day requirement. So if a motion could include those items.
Motion to include that we would do those appointments as we did last year and have the same number of committee members unless statute dictates otherwise with the same appointment process that was in place last year for Senate President and Speaker to make those appointments.
Now, the second by Senator Masterson. Any further discussion? All right, you have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Number 3, appointments of chairpersons, vice chairpersons, and members of certain statutory committees. J.G. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 988 committee needs 2 appointments from the LCC. And the other committee that needs the chair and vice chair appointed is the Legislative Budget Committee. So if the LCC can make those appointments, that would, I believe, commit or complete all of the statutory requirements for the LCC recommendations.
Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For discussion, I'll even make the motion, then you can have it for discussion. That to Chair 988 would be Senator McGinn, Vice Chair Representative Landwehr, Legislative Budget Committee, Troy Waymaster's Chair. And then we got Kyle Hoffman, Will Carpenter, Kathy Wolfmore.
Those would be the House members.
So now I've got to, okay, do we? Yeah, my list. Yeah, it's just going to be Billinger's, Clays, and Hawk. That's my motion.
Okay, are we just naming the chairs and vice chairs at this point, and the rest of the members? Okay, I apologize for that.
Waymaster and Billinger.
Okay, we're just naming the chairs and the vice chairs. Okay, so we have, go ahead and repeat the motion so everybody
The motion
understands.
will be Chair 988 would be McGinn, Vice Chair Landwehr, and Budget would be Chair Waymaster, Vice Chair Billinger.
Motion is second by Representative Hawkins. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 4, approval of leadership office budgets and certain legislative staff and director salaries pursuant to Senate Bill 267. Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, Senate Bill 267 was the appropriations bill. It included a 5% increase for employees. This number 4 would allow a 5% increase for legislative office budgets and certain legislative staff and directors' salaries pursuant to that bill. This was not an across-the-board 5% increase. It was a merit pool increase. So it would be necessary for the LCC to approve and authorize and approve a 5% increase to, if they want, the legislative leadership office budgets, as well as the director's salaries and the chief clerk of the House and the secretary of the Senate.
Discussion or questions? Representative Hawkins.
So on the legislative leadership budgets, I would like to see that just go in the budget and not actually be dispersed out to anybody. Let us make that decision, but for it just to go into the budget.
Correct. This would only be raising the leadership budgets.
Right.
It would be up to each leader to authorize whatever they wanted for their leadership staff.
So I'd make the motion to make that increase, the 5% increase for the leadership budget and for the directors and staff.
Second by Senator Masterson. Any discussion? Again, this is what was spelled out for us in our budget discussion and passed by both chambers and signed by the governor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 5, consideration of possible approval of reimbursement expenditures for uniform law commissioners to attend an annual meeting. Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the annual request for the travel of the uniform law commissioners to attend the annual meeting. Right now, there are only 3 commissioners in the uniform as part of the Kansas delegation. And I believe only one of those will be traveling to the annual meeting, last I heard. And it is to authorize reimbursement for their travel to the annual meeting in Philadelphia, July 9th through 13th, I believe, are the dates.
Representative Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move that we approve the reimbursement of expenditures for uniform law commissioners to attend the annual meeting.
Have a second? Second by Representative Hawkins. Any discussion? Senator Sykes.
Thank you. Is there a cap on that amount of reimbursement?
Is there a cap? It is actual expenses that they, within the federal guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 6, approval of out-of-state travel and recognized regional and national organizations meetings. Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This again is another annual request for the LCC's authorization and approval of out-of-state travel to recognized regional and national organization meetings of legislators who travel to those. There are different levels of reimbursement for legislators depending on LCC policy, but this is just a blanket for those authorized to travel to those out-of-state meetings.
Any discussion? Is there a motion? Representative Hawkins.
Sorry about that. I move we approve the out-of-state travel.
Seconded by Representative Finch. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 7, consideration of possible approval of CanFocus subscription renewal and contract. Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As every 2 years, CanFocus subscription runs for the Kansas Legislature, and the subscription runs out on June 30 this year. We have received a proposal from Kevin Yao and Laura Yao regarding the new subscription rates, and Mr. Yao is here if there are questions, Mr. Speaker. The new renewal proposal gives us 3 options. It's a 1-year subscription for $108,735, or the second option is a 2-year subscription, which will run from July 1 of 22 through June 30 of 24 in the amount of $197,670. And the third option is a 2-year subscription payable 1 year at a time with the same discounts as the second option. That would be $98,835 per year of the subscription for the 2 years, totaling the $197,670. We retain the discount even though we only pay it once a year. The recommendation would be, as we have done in the past, option number 3, which is the 2-year subscription payable 1 year at a time. And at this time, Mr. Chair, if it's acceptable to you, I don't know if Mr. Yao would like to make any comments or if you would allow that on the subscription.
Any questions for Tom or Mr. Yao? Any discussions on CanFocus? Representative Hawkins.
The only thing I would say about this is everybody uses this. We all use this. We depend upon it. And so I look forward every year to when we renew this, so we have it the next year. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve option 3.
Second by Senator Masterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the CanCare subscription for option 3, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, consideration of possible approval of KLIS support and maintenance contract with Profilon. Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You have a memo in front of you regarding our Propylon support and maintenance contract. The current support and maintenance contract ends on June 30, 2022. The memo in front of you is for a 3-year contract running from July 1, 2022 through June 30 of 2025. This would be all-inclusive support and maintenance contract, which would include upgrades to software for the core and any other software updates and system patches and updates. I have listed at the bottom the proposed contract information, term of 36 months, and the cost per year at $70,000 per quarter. My recommendation is requesting the LCC approve authority for the LCC chair to sign the new 36-month support contract with Propylon to span that period of time for 3 years for $280,000 in the first year, and then inflation factor after that.
Discussion, Representative Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that it would be unwarranted for us to enter into a 36-month contract at this point for maintenance. I would not have any objection to a long-term contract when we get the other issues that are pending with Propylon resolved. My understanding is that the RFP that was issued, and we've entered into contract negotiations, and of course, the motion was for that contract to come back here to the LCC to look at, and that those negotiations are underway. But I'm not comfortable granting a 3-year contract until I get that other issue resolved to my satisfaction. So I'll make a motion that we would give a 6-month maintenance contract, and that this issue would come back before us in December of this year, and would authorize the LCC chair to execute such a contract.
Second by Senator Masterson. Any discussion on the Finch motion? Seeing none, all in favor of a 6-month contract approved by or signed by the chair, signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 9, update on electronic timesheet utilization. This is a discussion item. Representative Day. Excuse me, Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I apologize for the demotion.
At the December meeting of the LCC, it was requested that we come up with a electronic timesheet for leadership staff and anyone else for that matter. The legislative IT staff have come up with a fillable with electronic signatures timesheet, and that has been sent out to all of the leadership chiefs of staff and for them to try and or use. It was also, since that time, I have found out that the actual, the more promising request that was underlying last December was actually to go into the actual SHARP system, the accounting and payroll system, for staff to be able to enter their time into that system. I received a message from Personnel Services this morning regarding the time frame that it would take to put together a module for the legislature so that time entry could be done through directly by each individual staff member. And that time frame, it would take them a good 4 weeks. I have 3 pages of what it takes to get that done, to create the module for the legislature and the Legislative Coordinating Council staff too, as well as any other legislative agencies that wanted to use that. My understanding is that 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe even longer than that, Personnel Services had looked into that for the legislature. They now presently do it for many of the executive branch agencies for time entry. And so we would work with Personnel Services to develop this module within SHARP. If that's the direction that the Legislative the Legislative Coordinating Council would want us to move to, it would require each employee to take and complete a training program, and then it would take the staff of our IT staff to ensure that everything is working and that the module is working on each individual legislative staff computer when it's developed and put up on the website. They would also want about a 2-week period in which they could also work a test program by each or some of the leadership staff and entry into that system just to make sure it's working properly and all of that. But total time frame could be 4 to 5 weeks down the road. So we're looking at another 3 pay periods or so before they could get that all developed, worked out on their end, worked out on our end, and tested on our end. So, but for the time being, we do have a fillable timesheet that has been distributed to leadership chiefs of staff to be also distributed within the leadership office for anyone that would like to use that. We also have the plain paper hard copy available within our office as well.
Discussion? Senator Sykes, you brought this up and we promised to talk about it today, so floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Day, for looking at that. And I think the intention was to move it to that Sharp system so that the employees could do it on that self-service portal. So I would make a motion that that he move forward, and hopefully in 5 weeks from now, we are able to do this in the 21st century.
I think this is just a report out. I don't think we need a motion, but direction is what he's seeking, and sounds like you're appreciate the direction the director's going. Tom Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In addition to that, not only this timesheet, we'll move forward towards that to work with personnel services and work on that. But in addition to that, at the December meeting, I believe, Representative Hawkins had asked for us to look at other forms as well. And many of the forms have already been done and have been available in a fillable format, even though you have to, especially like a travel form, you have to physically send in copies of receipts and that kind of stuff when you're traveling. But we're also looking at some of the other forms like leadership duty day, leadership days and that kind of stuff. Those are a little more extensive because of all of the formulas that are within each box that would be within each box if you're not filling it out by hand. So we are still looking at that as well, not only the timesheet issue, but going further based on Representative Hawkins' question about looking into those forms as well.
Senator Sykes.
Thank you. With that information, is it possible to have that in the Sharp system, or is that okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Tom Day? All right, thanks for the report. Committee, we need to go back to item number 3. Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A little bit of update from staff. There needs to be a correction, so I'm going to make a motion that my prior motion be reconsidered and corrected to read that the chair of the Legislative Budget Committee will be Billinger, Senator Billinger, Vice Chair, Representative Waymaster, and then as the motion pertained to 988, then McGinn and Landwehr are members because according to the statute, the chair will actually be chosen by the governor. So that would be the new motion.
Is there a second? Representative Finch makes a second. Again, this rescinds the earlier motion of 3 and amends it to include Billinger as the chair, Waymaster as vice chair of the Legislative Budget Committee, and appoints Senator McGinn, Representative Landwehr to the 988 Coordinating Council. Any discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion approves. Item number 10, update on the security of our Capitol complex. We've asked Steve Kearney with the Troop Association to give us a presentation.
Karen, members of LCC, good morning. Steve Kearney, I represent the Kansas State Troopers Association. I just recently found out that you all wanted to have some discussion about the Capitol Police and their duties. I don't know how much of that history and the like that you want. We do have a lieutenant from the Capitol Police here that could talk to you generally about their duties. If you'd like to have him come up, or I can give you this, kind of this rundown about how they got together and how that all took place over the years.
Sure, I think a lot of our, be great to have some history of how the department works, and then also the duties even outside this building, the other state-owned buildings in the entire complex, and how that's being handled by our Capitol Police.
Yeah, you bet. I think he can speak best to those. I can give you some of the history right quick if you like. So today, they're known as Capitol Police. This has all taken place sort of organically over several decades, where folks have been brought in from other agencies that were previously maybe security or had other duties. They're now under the Highway Patrol as law enforcement officers, fully trained, qualified law enforcement officers that go to the Kansas Highway Patrol Academy for their training. And they provide really maybe the only full-time, 24-hour, around-the-clock law enforcement service from the Highway Patrol. The others are on varying rotations and specialty teams and the like, but the Capitol Police provide that security and protection here for the State House and for other state buildings on a 24/7 basis. So their coverage entails, answering calls, servicing, patrolling over 100 state properties in Shawnee County, assisting other law enforcement agencies, investigation of traffic accidents, intervening in crimes and progress in traffic enforcement. They're also charged with providing uniform police protection at the Governor's Mansion, the State House, the Insurance Commissioner's Office building, the Memorial Building, and the Judicial Center. So you'll see them predominantly in those areas and making their way back and forth to those areas. So as this has evolved, in 1995, the legislature gave countywide general law enforcement authority to the Capitol Police, and then later gave full statewide law enforcement jurisdiction to the Capitol Police not very long after that. So their progression from 72 to today, they were created as a Capital Area Security Patrol back in 72. In 76, they moved over under the Highway Patrol, and things have just begun and continued to grow, like I said, kind of organically since then. These folks get the same training and everything as every other sworn member of the Highway Patrol. So I have the lieutenant come up and talk to you about some of their specific duties and what they're doing with those areas of responsibility that they typically take care of. Okay, thank you. Lieutenant.
Lieutenant Bishop? Doing great.
Lieutenant Brandon Bixwell of the Kansas Capitol Police Highway Patrol. I was recently assigned to this position here at the State House. I've been with the patrol for about 14 years. So, but as it is today, we have officers in this building, officers at Cedar Crest, and then we have road patrol. They patrol all state-owned and leased property in Shawnee County. When docking closed down, people kind of spread out. So we have Department of Revenue down at 29th and Topeka. We have the Kansas Insurance Commission out by Wanamaker, along with the Kansas KCC is out there as well. So right now that's kind of what we do. We provide all the security, answer all the calls for alarms or anything that they might have, because we have access to those buildings, whereas the local PD does not. So we do that. So that's kind of what we do. The big thing is being seen. So having people come around here, drive around and do their thing, keeps the criminal damage, the vandalism, the loitering, keeps that kind of minimal. So it helps out to keep the buildings in the shape they are, keeps the patrons safe, and make sure everybody goes home safe at night. So,
Just need to stand for a few questions.
sure.
Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the reasons it's on the agenda, some concerns that reach our offices that we may not be getting our nightly patrols out in the greater complex. And are you having any issues with that, or anything prohibiting you guys from doing your drive-throughs on a nightly basis in the
We
outer
recently got a directive that we needed to focus more on the Capitol complex and maybe not so much on some of the outlying agencies. And so that's what we've been doing. We're still answering calls to those buildings, but we're not doing a regular patrol as far as driving through their parking lots or making sure the doors are locked or that sort of thing.
But that was a directive you received from above you.
Correct.
All right, so we'll have to deal with that at a different level then. Thank you.
Representative Hawkins.
Thank you for being here. So is there in the statute anything that says that you will or you shall patrol certain areas in the city?
At one time, I believe there was a statute or an emission statement or something that said that we were responsible for all state-owned and leased property within Shawnee County. We haven't found the exact wording of that as of late, but so I can't answer that question.
So that may be at the directive of the colonel of the highway patrol. He may direct who,
As far as what our job duty is?
yeah, as far as where you're going to patrol.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. So he can do that. So are you guys, do you guys have plenty of officers? Are you up to staff?
We're a couple officers down. I'm not exactly sure of the exact number. I know we've had several retirements and a couple people have left to do other revenue. So I can't give you an exact number, but I know we have a lot of overtime. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So it sounds like one of the concerns we had, and one of the reasons we talked about it was what the Senator Masterton mentioned, patrolling of the other assets or things that's under your, actually according to statute, responsibility to watch. And that's been limited, and we understand the importance of patrol and what it does to deter crime. Has there been any other interlocal agreements with the county or the city to pick up the duties that you've are now not doing?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, so the patrol of their other outside buildings, checking the parking lots, checking lots, currently isn't happening. And maybe some of your resources have been redirected to other places, or, Senator, to Representative's question, is it a staff issue? Is it a direction? Is it anything? And again, there's things that you're not comfortable sharing. We understand these are security issues, these are personal issues. And if this committee determines at a later date, you'd like to go in executive session to have these discussions, we're open to that too. So I want you to be sensitive to that. I'm not saying you have to answer these questions, especially if they deal with the security of our buildings or personnel issues.
I think most of the security questions and personal issues probably need to be in executive session, as that's probably not something that needs to be in public, so.
Okay, any other questions, Lieutenant? Or for Steve? Well, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And thanks for what you do for us to protect us here in the building and the whole complex. Well, committee, appreciate the work we've done today. With that, we are adjourned.